Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're jumping into the world of co-working spaces in Shanghai.
That's right.
So if you're listening, maybe you're heading there, thinking of moving, or you're just curious about how people work in such a dynamic city.
It's a hot topic.
And for this deep dive, our main source is an article from moveandstay.com. Now, these guys have been around for what, over 25 years?
Yeah, a long time. Helping expats and business travelers find places to work and stay across Asia. They've seen a lot change.
Definitely veterans. So what's our goal today?
Basically, we want to give you a really clear, quick overview of Shanghai's co-working scene. Think of it as saving you some research time.
Okay.
We'll cover the key things: locations, the vibe of the spaces, membership flexibility, networking, sustainability, which is increasingly important, and the essential amenities.
All right, let's dive in. First up, location.
Yeah.
Where are these places popping up, according to moveandstay.com?
Well, there's a big concentration in the CBDs, the central business districts. Places like Lujiazui, Jing'an, Zuhui.
Makes sense. That's where the big business happens.
Exactly. You get that prestige. You're near major corporations, financial institutions. It can be a real leg up for networking or, making an impression.
And moveandstay.com mentioned lunch options, too. Always important.
Yes. Never underestimate the power of a good lunch nearby. But seriously, for international companies, maybe just testing the waters in Shanghai.
Yeah.
Using a co-working space in a CBD is like a much lower risk way in compared to signing a huge traditional office lease straight off the bat.
Good point. And it's not just about being in the CBD, it's about getting to it, right?
Yeah.
Moveandstay.com talked about transport.
Oh, absolutely crucial. They highlight how these spaces are usually really close to transport links, the metro, buses, maybe even main train stations.
Which, in a city like Shanghai, must save a ton of time and hassle.
Definitely. Makes commuting easier for locals and much simpler for visitors coming in for meetings.
Okay, so CBDs are one option. But what if you want something different, a bit more local flavor? Moveandstay.com mentioned other areas, too.
Yeah, they did. They talked about spaces in more like vibrant neighborhoods. These are areas with maybe more independent cafes, little bars, unique shops.
Kind of different vibe entirely.
Totally. Choosing a space, there is less about the corporate address and maybe more about work-life balance, experiencing the real Shanghai, perhaps.
Immersing yourself a bit more.
Right. You step out the door and you're right in the middle of a lively local scene. Could be great for creativity or just, enjoying the city after work.
Okay, so diverse locations. Now, let's imagine stepping inside. Moveandstay.com paints a picture that's pretty far from the old gray cubicle farms.
Oh, definitely. There's a real focus on design. We're talking bright, open layouts, lots of natural light if possible, inspiring artwork on the walls, comfy furniture, maybe even ergonomic stuff.
Though creating an atmosphere where people actually want to be.
Exactly. The whole idea, as moveandstay.com suggests, is to foster creativity, make people feel inspired, not just chained to a desk.
And you mentioned something interesting earlier about traditional Chinese design elements being woven in sometimes. Did moveandstay.com give specifics? I'm trying to picture that.
They didn't detail specific examples like, this space uses this pattern, but the idea is creating a unique sense of place. It might be subtle, maybe through color choices, materials, or certain architectural features that just nod to the local aesthetic.
A nice touch.
Yeah.
Keeps it from feeling generic.
Right. And beyond just looking good, some spaces actively push for artistic collaboration. moveandstay.com mentioned things like hosting exhibitions, running workshops, maybe even having actual studio space available.
So it blurs the lines between work and, art.
Kind of, yeah. It makes it a more dynamic environment.
And what about the tech scene? Shanghai's huge for tech.
Yeah.
Are there spaces specifically for that crowd? According to moveandstay.com.
Yes, absolutely. It makes total sense. These aren't just places with decent Wi-Fi. They often have state-of-the-art tech infrastructure. They host tech talks, specific workshops for developers or entrepreneurs, and crucially, they build a community of tech-focused people.
So good for networking within that specific industry.
Definitely. And moveandstay.com even hinted that some might offer access to things like prototyping gear or specialized software, really creating an ecosystem for tech startups.
Wow. Okay. So location, vibe, sorted. Let's get down to brass tacks. Membership. Flexibility seems key here, based on moveandstay.com's info. especially for short stays.
Totally. This is a huge selling point. They detailed quite a range. You've got day passes they estimated maybe 150 to 300 a day.
So roughly 20 to 40 US dollars, give or take.
Something like that, yeah. And
Yeah,
month-to-month deals too. Perfect if you're on a short project or just want to try a place out before committing long-term.
makes sense. Test the
Yep.
waters. And then these customizable packages, sounds like you don't pay for stuff you don't need.
Pretty much. MoveInStay.com really stresses comparing these. You can often pick and choose. Maybe you need a dedicated desk, maybe just hot desking. How much meeting room time do you need? Printing.
Right. So you might compare, say, one space offering 5 hours of meeting room credits versus another with unlimited access, but maybe a higher base price.
Exactly that kind of thing. You got to figure out what your workflow actually requires and find the package that matches, value-wise.
And for people planning a longer stay, moveandstay.com mentioned longer-term plans.
Yeah, if you're settling in, think 3 12 months for a dedicated desk. MoveAndStay.com gave a rough range of maybe 2,500 to 4,500 a month.
Okay.
Or for private offices, maybe 6 12-month contracts starting around 5,000 plus. Usually you get better rates with longer commitments.
Yeah, maybe extra perks.
Often, yeah.
Yeah.
Plus, there's the benefit of stability. And MoveAndStay.com pointed out things like having reliable permanent IT support can be a bigger factor with those longer-term deals.
Right. You want that consistency.
Right.
Okay. Covers the range of options. Now, a big part of co-working is meant to be the community. MoveAndStay.com seemed to emphasize this.
Hugely. They make it clear it's way more than just renting a desk. It's about building a community.
How do they do that?
Through regular networking events, mostly. Could be casual after-work drinks. Could be more structured meetups focused on a specific industry.
So finding potential clients or collaborators.
Exactly. MoveAndStay.com notes how valuable these connections can be. You're surrounded by other motivated people.
And it's not just social. There are learning opportunities too. Workshops.
Yeah, skill sharing sessions are common, covering topics useful for freelancers and entrepreneurs, marketing, finance, maybe the latest industry trends.
Practical stuff.
Very practical, and some spaces might even have mentorship programs, which could be amazing for someone starting out.
And I liked the sound of things like hackathons or collaborative projects moveandstay.com mentioned. Gets people working together.
Right. It's a hands-on way to use your skills, learn from others, and really build your network in a tangible way. It's all about fostering that supportive, dynamic environment.
Okay, switching gears a bit. Sustainability. It's encouraging that moveandstay.com says this is becoming a bigger deal in Shanghai's co-working scene.
Yes, it's definitely a growing trend mirroring what's happening globally. And it's great to see Shanghai Spaces embracing it.
How so? Are we talking major certifications?
Some are going for that, yeah. MoveInStay.com mentioned things like LIGHT or BREEAM certifications.
Okay, those are the big green building standards.
Exactly. They signify meeting pretty tough criteria for energy efficiency, water use, indoor environmental quality, that kind of thing.
But it's not just about the big labels, is it? MoveInStay.com mentioned everyday practices too.
Yeah, and that's maybe even more impactful day to day. Things like proper recycling programs, not just one bin, but clearly labeled ones, maybe partnerships with recycling companies.
Simple, but effective.
And energy efficiency measures, using LED lighting, installing smart thermostats to avoid wasting energy on heating or cooling empty rooms. Small changes add up.
Good to hear. And any community level stuff.
MoveInStay.com pointed to some spaces partnering with local environmental groups, maybe organizing volunteer days for green causes or hosting workshops about sustainability for their members.
Nice. Fosters a shared sense of responsibility.
Exactly. It builds it into the community's ethos.
Okay, so we've got location, vibe, flexibility, community, sustainability. Now, the nuts and bolts, amenities. What basics can people expect?
Well, the absolute number one, non-negotiable, according to MoveAndStay.com, is reliable, high-speed internet.
Obviously. Can't do much without it.
Right. And they even mentioned some spaces offer backup internet connections, which, if your work absolutely cannot be interrupted, is a huge plus. Worth asking about.
Definitely. And meeting rooms.
Essential for many. MoveInStay.com says you can generally expect well-equipped meeting rooms, conference facilities, usually with projectors or screens, maybe video conferencing gear.
So you can host clients properly.
Exactly. Present professionally, hold team meetings, all that.
And it's not all heads down work. MoveInStay.com mentioned relaxation areas.
Yeah, this is important too. Spaces often have dedicated lounge areas, cafes, sometimes even games rooms, places to unwind, grab a coffee, chat informally with other members.
Helps break up the day.
Totally. MoveandStay.com even shared a fun detail about one space apparently having a dedicated nap room.
A nap room. Now that's an amenity.
Right. Shows are thinking about well-being, not just pure productivity hours. Those little touches make a difference.
Okay, so there's a lot on offer across different spaces. How does someone actually choose the right one for them in Shanghai? MoveandStay.com had advice here, right?
Yes, and the first step is pretty fundamental. Figure out your own needs.
Like what?
Like, what's your budget? How often will you actually use the space? Do you need 247 access or just standard business hours? What kind of environment helps you work best, quiet focus zone or buzzing and collaborative?
And those must-have amenities, fast internet, meeting rooms, decent coffee.
Exactly. List out your non-negotiables. Once you know what you're looking for, MoveAndStay.com strongly recommends actually visiting places.
Don't just rely on the website photos.
Definitely not. Schedule tours, ask lots of questions, get a feel for the atmosphere, the community vibe. Who actually works there? Does it feel like a good fit?
And MoveAndStay.com had that handy comparison table idea.
Yeah, a simple template. List features down one side, price, location, internet speed, meeting rooms, community events, etc. And then columns for space A, space B, space C. Helps you compare objectively.
Smart. And one last point they raised was about Shanghai's business culture.
Uh-huh. It's a subtle but potentially important point. Some spaces might have a more distinctly local Chinese feel. Others might be more internationally focused.
Catering to different industries or nationalities, maybe?
Possibly. So MoveAndStay.com suggests thinking about whether you'd prefer a more local environment or one with more international connections. It can shape your networking and just your overall sense of belonging.
So it really boils down to a personal search.
Absolutely. As MoveAndStay.com wraps up, there's no single best space. It's about doing the research, exploring, and finding the one that clicks with your work style and, frankly, makes you feel productive and happy.
Okay, so wrapping this up, our deep dive, using insights from MoveAndStay.com's long experience over 25 years, really shows Shanghai's co-working scene is much more than just office space for rent.
Definitely. It's a whole ecosystem.
You've got this vibrant atmosphere, real networking potential, amazing flexibility, and just tons of options for different needs and tastes.
Couldn't agree more. Finding the right space is personal. You need to invest the time to find your spot.
And it leaves you with a thought, doesn't it? Considering how work is changing all this global talent movement, how might the ongoing growth of these specialized co-working spaces in cities like Shanghai really reshape professional communities?
Yeah, and international exchange, too. Building on what platforms like MoveAndStay.com have been doing for decades, connecting people with places. It's definitely something interesting to keep an eye on.